Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 158. Introverts, it's time to face the truth. Okay, so you know I'm a glass half full kind of girl. So it comes to something when I have to put away those rose-coloured glasses and pull my stark reality vest on. And just so you know, my stark reality vest is a bit like a hair shirt, so itchy and uncomfortable. If you've not heard the term hair shirt before, let me give you a quick précis. Hair shirts are typically made from goat hair or an equally rough animal hair, and they're worn next to the skin as an undershirt. This means it scratches and was originally used as a constant reminder of faith or as some kind of penitence in order to avoid sin. So why would I use this analogy? I spoke a few weeks ago about the damage toxic positivity does. So my hair shirt reminds me that whilst I look to find the best in every situation and every person, sometimes a reality check is needed. Not a catastrophised version of reality, nor a cushioned version so as not to upset people, but straight up, this is where we are reality. So this week, I'm delivering a straight up reality check on how introverts can help themselves in the workplace. And of course, it leads on beautifully from the last 2 episodes on toxicity in the workplace and our 3 a.m. thoughts. Word of warning, some of you won't like my message. And that's okay. I'm not here to rescue or protect people. I'm here to equip you with the best tools, ammunition and gizmos in my armoury so that you can be the best version of yourself. No pity parties here. And in essence, that is what has prompted this episode. Too many people complaining and wanting things to be different, but not being prepared to do anything about it themselves. I know we're all busy and I know we're all overwhelmed or close to it, but we each need to take responsibility for ourselves at least. I'll start by sharing 10 stark realities, and honestly, none of them will come as a surprise to you. But then what I'll do is I'll look at what we can do about each of them, how to respond if we're going to flourish authentically. And just to give you a heads up at this point, my recommended responses are not going to be just ignore it or get shirty and complain. As Fred Van Amber said, all the advice in the world will never help you until you help yourself. Because I'm only sharing my top 10, I haven't nailed all of them, so please email me or comment on the review to tell me what other stark realities you'd add. As I'm exploring each, notice which you recognise the most, which have the biggest impact in your life, and which you are going to action in order to create a better future and career for yourself. Stark reality number 1. The workplace is not introvert friendly. I want to add yet to that, and I know we're still some way off that. There are open plan offices to contend with, unplanned and unstructured meetings to attend, and favouritism shown to those who are the life and soul of the office. I can either grumble about it, or I can decide how I'm going to make my corner of the workplace more inclusive. So response number 1, this is about understanding the nature of equity and inclusion and making it your business to include those around you. Yes, even the extroverts. We need to let go of this them versus us situation. We need to let go of this them versus us situation and acknowledge that extroverts need social interaction in order to recharge, and we need quiet to recharge. It's not right and wrong, it's just different. Embracing and valuing difference explicitly as well as implicitly is the way to go. Book small meeting rooms when you have things you must focus on. Wear headphones, some employers are okay with this, And structure your time and tasks so that you get the really intense stuff done when you're at your best or when fewer people are around. Stark reality number 2. People will assume you're shy, lacking ambition, or just not interested. Just because we prefer to keep to ourselves doesn't mean we're not confident or demotivated. Unfortunately, our introverted nature can be misinterpreted as disinterest, shyness, or even arrogance. We know the truth, and we're just conserving our energy for the next big project. But those around you may well see it differently. Here's the response to that reality. Okay, so we know the truth, but do those around us? Part of shifting this bias we're subjected to is helping people understand and value difference. There are so many resources to help with this, and if you have any influence over the team you're in, suggest a session where you explore the introvert-extrovert dichotomy in a playful way. There seems to be a myth that extroverts don't want to understand and don't care. That has not been my experience, and it does matter how we make these things discussable. I have developed a knack for making the undiscussable discussable, and I thoroughly recommend it as a communication technique. Stark reality number 3. There will be office politics, so saying you don't do politics is actually rather naive. It doesn't matter how much we'd rather there wasn't all of the peacocking, posturing and positioning. It's part of workplace culture. How to respond to that reality? Well, this is one of my favourite topics to discuss with leaders and those aspiring to leadership positions. The term office politics usually has negative connotations, but they are not always bad. The bad and ugly types are obviously best avoided, but good politics is about doing things ethically in the interest of the larger group. So the thing to remember is that we can't avoid the office politics. All we can do is navigate them ethically and avoid those that are about self-interest. This means building necessary relationships to get things done. And all leaders, even introverted leaders, do this. Stark reality number 4. Not everyone in the workplace has high emotional intelligence. This topic, emotional intelligence, otherwise known as EI, has been on everyone's agenda for the last few decades, and there is still much work to be done. Daniel Goleman, one of the key names in this field, defines emotional intelligence as the capacity for recognizing our own feelings and those of others, for motivating ourselves, and for managing emotions well in ourselves and in our relationships. So, how do we respond to that reality? We know that behaviour breeds behaviour, and the tendency, therefore, is that when someone behaves badly to us, we are triggered to behave badly back. Having sufficient emotional intelligence enables us to recognise that even though I may have been triggered by someone else's behaviour, I do not have to respond similarly. This is another reason why we need to become emotionally literate, as I discuss in episode 143, and I'll put the link to that in the show notes. If I know what my emotions are, I stand a better chance of managing them and expressing them appropriately. The good news is that we can develop our EI abilities, which means that wherever we start from, we can improve. It is often said that more than 50% of emotional intelligence is down to our self-awareness, so that's naturally the place to start. And here are 3 simple things you can do. Number 1, take time to make the effort to really notice your own moods and the impact that they have on people around you. Your behaviour affects others, so take responsibility for it and express your emotions with care. The second thing you can do is to ask for feedback regularly on your behaviour and the impact it's having, so that you become really aware of your emotional strengths and development areas. And the third thing, recognise when you are getting stressed and take appropriate action. Let's move on to stark reality number 5. You won't always feel safe. And here I'm talking about psychological safety, which I talked about way back in episode 63. Again, I'll put the link in the show notes. Harvard professor Amy Edmondson coined the phrase psychological safety, and simply put, it's the belief that you will not be punished or humiliated for speaking up with your ideas, questions, concerns, and mistakes. So, how do we respond to this lack of safety? This is where it can start to get a bit edge of comfort zone for we introverts, because Edmondson describes psychological safety as that state of being when I know that my voice is valued and I have permission to be completely candid and honest. Many organisations don't create a culture where we can feel safe in this way. So what do? Bite my tongue? Not me. Using sound judgment, I will decide the extent to which I can voice my opinion and will always go a little bit further than I thought I could. Whenever I've done this, I've been pleasantly surprised by the outcome, and it reminds me of how often I stayed too far inside my comfort zone. Yes, it does require bravery, but what I've realised is that I can't sit around and wait to feel safe. I have to push boundaries and realise that I'm still okay. Therefore, I found a new limit to my safety. The other great thing is that every organisation I'm working with is aware of the need for psychological safety. So just find a way to mention it as you're becoming braver, and people are more likely to listen and take you seriously. Stark reality number 6. Bad behaviour is not always dealt with by managers. In fact, many managers don't manage. This is a constant source of frustration to me, and what I've come to realise is that one of the reasons managers don't address bad behaviour is that they don't feel safe either. So, responding to that reality, I believe there are a couple of things necessary for us to do. One is to give clear, concise, non-judgmental feedback that names the behaviour rather than labelling it. There is an art to this technique, and it's well worth developing. The second is to find out how you can support the manager in their efforts. They may be as frustrated as you and feel disempowered, so your support may bolster their confidence. The truth is, you won't know until you have the conversation. Does it require courage? Yes, and assertiveness, both essential for anyone looking to further their career. Stark reality number 7. You'll probably contribute more than your fair share and on a regular basis. We introverts can be very productive and turn out a lot of work if we get into flow, or the zone as some people call it. We're not the talkers, we're known as the doers. And that's not to say that extroverts aren't doers too. So how do we respond to that reality? Well, it's by using our assertiveness to give feedback, to say no when you need to without guilt or shame. And yes, this will probably involve using the conditional no. And finally, to make sure that you claim and take credit for your own work. It's all too easy to sit back for fear of conflict or unpleasantness, but stand up for your rights assertively. You've already heard me mention assertiveness a few times, and it won't be the last time I reference it either, because it's common for introverts to need to develop this behaviour and mindset. Stark reality number 8. Small talk is a necessary evil. I know. It's actually the gateway to the meaningful conversations we crave, so you'll have to learn to engage in some small talk and hide that RBF. How do we respond to that? See, it's true, I dislike the mindless chatter as much as the next introvert, but the reality is that our generative, meaningful, enriching conversations are just the other side of those first awkward interactions. Find a way to move people beyond that awkwardness quickly by having some great questions lined up that lead straight to the good stuff. It will take some practice and it will be well worth it, so do give it a try. One last thing, you may need to reframe your dislike of small talk in order to get more comfortable with the process. My reframe comes from the way I manage my workload. I do the thing I dislike first so that I can enjoy the things I really like afterwards. And I can feel smug about what I've achieved as a result. Same goes with this. Do the small talk, but quickly move it on to the types of conversations we really enjoy. Stark reality number 9. Recognition might be scarce and you'll probably hear more criticism than recognition. I don't know what it is about managers who don't like to give people the recognition they deserve. Some of my clients have specific reward and recognition programs, but they fail when they aren't used equitably. Some people think, that's what I pay you for, so I don't see why I should reward it. Those people don't understand human behaviour and motivation, so they are missing a real trick. So, to respond to this reality, accept that you might not be able to change the people who don't give adequate recognition, but you can do your part in recognising those who impact you. They may be colleagues, managers, or even family and friends. Great Place to Work conducted research between 2018 and 2020 with 1.7 million employees, and the greatest driver of great work was shown to be recognition. Other factors were way behind these, but the next two were given as autonomy and inspire me. So don't be mean. Recognise the results and efforts of those around you. Recognising effort really helps people to keep applying themselves, to keep improving. Things to recognise include achievements naturally, but also exhibiting desired behaviours and going above and beyond expectations. And remember, they may not go above and beyond your expectations, but know people well enough to know when they have gone beyond their own expectations. Finally, stark reality number 10. More people will be passive-aggressive than assertive. I said it wouldn't be the last time I mentioned assertiveness, didn't I? Here in the UK, we are known for our dry sense of humour, sarcasm and understatement. This feeds our ability to be passive-aggressive and see it as completely normal. It's really not helpful. In fact, Psychology Today reminds us that sarcasm is hostility disguised as humour. How does this manifest? Ghosting, a backhanded compliment, subtle digs, making excuses rather than saying what needs saying, so discussing the undiscussable as I mentioned earlier. Responding to this reality, probably the most important thing is to take the assertive position and not to collaborate with the passive-aggressive crowd. They can be a force to be reckoned with, and when you call them on it, their response is likely to be, "I'm only joking, don't take things so personally." So, watch out for when you avoid someone you're upset or angry with. I understand the need for the breathing space, and this needs to be used for getting clear on what has happened, preparing for the conversation you need to have, and getting yourself in the right headspace. If you're avoiding because you don't want to have the conversation at all, you're falling into the passive-aggressive trap. Check any tendency to badmouth or backstab, again another passive-aggressive behaviour. Avoid punishing people by putting their work to the bottom of the pile or doing it half-heartedly. So, there we have my top 10 stark realities that we all have to face in the workplace. If you have ambitions to progress, finding a way to respond professionally is going to serve you really well. Perhaps the biggest thing is to remember that circle of influence and circle of control model. Take action where you can, because if it's from the right intent, in other words, to benefit all, it will be well worth doing. Now, remember those questions I asked at the start? Which of these stark realities do you recognise the most? Which have the biggest impact in your life? Which are you going to action in order to create a better future and career for yourself? Take some time to capture your thoughts now and plan your actions. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
This has been a Monkey Pants Productions podcast.